The security camera in the corner of Martinez Hardware had captured something remarkable, though nobody knew it yet. For over 6 months, an elderly woman had appeared almost every single day at closing time, pushing a rusty shopping cart that squeaked like a wounded animal. The store manager, Derek, had finally decided to check the footage after the owner questioned why so many cans were disappearing from the recycling bin behind the building. What he discovered would change the way he saw kindness forever. Her name was Rosa, and she was 73 years old, though the lines on her face suggested she had lived several lifetimes. She moved slowly through the world now, her body bent slightly forward as if permanently burdened by invisible weight. Rosa had been a seamstress for 42 years before arthritis had twisted her fingers into permanent, painful hooks. Her husband had passed away 5 years ago, leaving her with a small pension, a house with mounting property taxes, and a heart that still ached in the quiet hours before dawn. Every dollar she could scrape together mattered, because she had made a promise. A promise that now drove her through the streets of the neighborhood like an obsession, like a calling that superseded her own comfort. Nobody paid attention to an old woman collecting cans. They stepped over her. They looked away when she bent down on her aching knees to retrieve a crumpled aluminum can from beneath a park bench. Teenagers in hoodies walked past her without seeing her. Young mothers with strollers hurried by, their children's attention already captured by screens and candy. Rosa had become part of the urban landscape, invisible as a shadow, as unremarkable as the cracks in the sidewalk. She moved through her neighborhood like a ghost haunting her own life, but she didn't mind the invisibility. It allowed her to work without judgment. It allowed her to collect her small treasures, can by can, nickel by nickel. Every morning at 6 o'clock, no matter the weather, Rosa would tie her worn canvas shoes and step into the streets with her shopping cart. In the brutal summer heat, when the thermometer climbed up past 100 degrees and the pavement seemed to shimmer and breathe, she pushed forward. In the winter months, when her arthritis screamed and her fingers grew numb despite her gloves, she still went out. She collected cans from parking lots, from behind restaurants, from grocery store bins. Her hands were calloused and stained, her back perpetually sore, but she never stopped. Couldn't stop. Not with what she knew was waiting. The thing nobody saw was what lay hidden in a worn notebook tucked into her cart, its pages filled with names and numbers written in shaky handwriting. 27 names. 27 children who lived in her apartment building or the streets nearby. Children who came from families fractured by poverty, addiction, and circumstance. She knew their stories because she listened. She watched their bare feet in winter, their hollow cheeks, the way they held each other's hands a little tighter when they thought no one was looking. One was a 9-year-old named Miguel whose father had abandoned the family, leaving his mother working 3 jobs. Another was a teenage girl named Destiny who had stopped going to school because she didn't have proper shoes and was too proud to ask for help. There was little Tommy, 6 years old, who lived with his grandmother in a room barely bigger than a closet, never having owned a new book or a toy that wasn't broken. Each can Rosa collected represented possibility. Each nickel and dime was a small rebellion against the world's indifference. She had created a spreadsheet in her head, tracking how much money she needed and for what. New shoes for Miguel before winter arrived, a backpack and new textbooks for Destiny so she might return to school, a birthday bicycle for Tommy, even though his birthday was months away, because she wanted him to know that someone remembered he existed, that he mattered, that kindness still lived in the world. She had cut her own meals down to 1 modest dinner per day, had stopped buying her medications consistently to save money, had refused to replace her broken heater even as autumn crept in. But no one saw this sacrifice because sacrifice had become her invisible companion, as much a part of her as her own shadow. Derek, the store manager, felt something shift inside him as he watched the security footage. He saw Rosa's weathered hands selecting cans carefully, sorting them, placing them gently in her cart as if handling treasure. He watched her move through 6 months of footage and fast, forward a ghost among the seasons unchanged, undeterred, eternal in her quiet mission. His first instinct was to remove her, to tell her to stop taking from the bin behind the store. That was the instinct of someone who hadn't looked carefully enough at the world yet. But something stopped him. He watched longer, rewind and play, until tears began to blur his vision. He realized he was watching devotion. He was watching love made visible through the simple act of collecting cans. That evening, Derek went home and couldn't stop thinking about Rosa. He told his wife, who worked as a social worker, about the woman who came every day at closing time. His wife knew exactly who he was talking about. She had encountered Rosa multiple times during her rounds, always asking about the children in the neighborhood, always deflecting questions about her own welfare. Together, they decided to take action. They reached out to friends, to family, to the community Facebook groups and neighborhood associations. They told Rosa's story with Derek's security footage as evidence, and something remarkable happened. A movement began. Within 2 weeks, the story of Rosa had spread through the neighborhood and beyond. Local news picked it up. An elementary school organized a drive that collected 3 months' worth of recycling in 2 days. A shoe store donated professional-grade running shoes and winter boots. A bookstore delivered boxes of new books. A bicycle shop, moved by Tommy's story that Derek had shared, donated not just 1 bicycle but 10, along with helmets and locks. Restaurant owners who learned about Rosa started setting aside their recyclables in a special bin, doubled their aluminum deposits, and offered her meals. People who had walked past her 1,000 times and never once seen her now stopped to shake her hand, to hug her, to tell her that her quiet rebellion had inspired them to pay attention to the invisible people around them. Rosa broke down the first time Derek approached her with the news. She had spent 6 months pushing her cart through the streets, her body breaking down piece by piece, believing that no one would ever acknowledge what she was trying to do. She had convinced herself that her sacrifice would be thankless, unknown, a private act of love that the world would never witness or validate. But Derek stood there with a printout of the security footage and a list of names, all the people in her neighborhood who had been moved to action because of what she had done. When he showed her the bicycle and the boxes of supplies, when he showed her the donations that had poured in from strangers who believed in her mission, Rosa's knees buckled. She had to sit down on a plastic chair behind the hardware store, her whole body shaking with the weight of finally being seen. The security footage that Derek had checked out of routine curiosity had illuminated something essential about the human heart: that kindness, even when unwitnessed, plants seeds. That sacrifice, even when silent, reverberates. That the invisible among us are never truly unseen by those who know how to look. Rosa had been collecting cans not for glory or recognition, but because 27 children deserved to know that someone cared about their futures. In the end, what changed wasn't just the lives of those children, though it profoundly did. What changed was the entire neighborhood's understanding of what it means to see one another, to honor the quiet warriors among us who give everything they have when no one is watching. Today, Rosa still walks those streets, but she's no longer alone. Neighbors join her now, helping collect cans, not as charity, but as a way to participate in something meaningful. The children she helped have begun to help others. Miguel volunteers at a community center. Destiny returned to school and is maintaining honors grades. Tommy no longer talks about going hungry. And Derek has installed a new security camera pointed not at the recycling bin, but at Rosa's face, capturing her smile every time she comes to collect her cans. A smile that says everything about the power of witnessing kindness and choosing to amplify it.